Hey, welcome. My name is Professor Efron. This is going to be Chemistry 40 for the winter semester. Just want to make a little welcome video, hopefully not too long. Want to cover a couple of things about the Canvas site, some maybe questions that maybe you might have. Maybe we'll hit some of those along the way. Also, just want to say hello and introduce myself, real person. You'll see me at some point, I imagine. But just looking at here, our Canvas site to begin with, obviously this is Chem 40. It is a hybrid class. And if you're not sure about sort of where our times meet, what the semester looks like, if you go to our Canvas page here under the syllabus tab and click on it, it'll have all the important information. So again, Chem 40 hybrid. This is the introduction to chemistry course. This is the course typically that you take if you are planning on continuing on to Chem 50 and Chem 51, which is General Chemistry 1 and 2 for science majors. If you are more nursing or something of that nature, usually you take the Chem 10, Chem 20 route. So hopefully everybody's in the right spot. But if you're continuing on to go to Chem 50, 51, even 80 or 81, which is organic, this should be the correct class for you. If you're really not on that pathway, like I said before, maybe Chem 10 is really the class that you are looking for. But Chem 40 hybrid here, hybrid meaning that the lecture component will be online here on our Canvas site pretty much with me. We will have in-person labs. So you will be coming to campus. So you'll be coming down to Mount Sac there, and you'll be going to building 60 and room 3617. And you'll be having in-person labs on those lab days. You will actually have a different professor for lab. It's Professor Kraft. He will be your professor for lab. So you'll see him when you come to campus. You'll see me here up online in the videos, and maybe occasionally I'll stop by and say hello on campus. But most of the time you will see Professor Kraft in person. He is the person that's in charge of the lab. So any type of question involved in the lab component or anything like that, you should definitely direct your questions to him. You can find his email here. Also on our syllabus, you'll be able to find it as well. For me, anything involving pretty much the rest of the class, lecture, or any part of that, you would take those questions to me. Email probably the best way to reach me. I do check my email pretty much all throughout the day, 7 days a week. So at some point I will get back to you relatively quickly. Again, it might not be instantaneously, but relatively quickly. If by some chance you do send me an email and you don't hear from me within a day or so, you probably should send it again. If your email is like mine, sometimes I get a lot of email, a lot of junk email, and sometimes things get kind of caught in the middle of those emails. I'm usually pretty good at finding student emails, but again, I would say if it's been over a day or so and you haven't heard back from me, that's probably very unusual. So just resend it to me, and I definitely should be able to find it. That's usually not too much of an issue. I'm usually, like I said, pretty good at finding those things. So let's talk a little about our section here. 3054 is our section number. Lecture time is asynchronous online, pretty much online through our Canvas site is where everything for lecture will be. There will be, just so everybody's clear, one in-person meeting that we will have technically for the lecture part. And that's actually our very last day where we will take the lecture final. We're going to do it on, it looks like February 15th, 2024, as it's just now turned, at 7:30 a.m. So we're going to do it during your normal lab time that you're normally at campus. So obviously, instead of doing lab on that very last day, we're just going to all meet there in person in the lab room, and we'll take the actual lecture final at that day. So make sure you mark that on your calendar. We do need to come in person on February 15th at 7:30 to take the lecture final. Lab time, again, is the in-person component of this course. You, again, will meet 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. You do have to attend all three meetings, all weeks. It starts at 7:30 a.m. and runs to 10:40 a.m., so about 3 hours and 10 minutes or so. That is in building 60, and it's in room 3617. So if you're familiar with the campus, or if not, once you find building 60, it is between building, or near, I guess to say, building 7, 61, and then there's 60, and building 11 to the left of it. Chemistry is pretty much on the 3rd floor of that building. So if you go out to the 3rd floor, I believe this location should be inside the actual building. So once you come out the elevator, you should find it there in that building at 3617. It'll be one of the rooms across from the elevator, or to the left as you get off down the elevator. You will need to meet and are expected to stay for the entire time on each of those days, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. The labs will be used for obviously lab activities, lab experiments, and we will also be doing our midterm exams and in person during lab time. So on those days where you do take an exam, you'll do a lab as well, and you'll do part of the lab on that day, and then you will take the exam for the other part of that. So we will be doing in-person exams during lab time as well. Here's again the important sort of information about the course, and also important dates that are happening here. I guess the 2 or 4 important dates here. The last day to drop without a W looks like it's January 15th. Last day to drop with a W, January 30th. And our 2 final exams that we have. If you're not familiar with the chemistry courses at this school, has 2 final exams, one for the lab part and one for the lecture part. So you will actually be taking your lab final that last week that we have class, again in person on Tuesday, February 13th at 7:30 during our normal lab time. You'll also probably be checking out at that time as well of your lab lockers. Then again, 2 days later, as we don't go to school here on Wednesdays during the winter session, you will take your lecture final, which will be on Thursday, February 15th at 7:30 a.m. All right, so that's a lot of the important sort of information. I did want to touch upon some other things here. We will be having some exams. We will also be having 2 finals, as we just talked about. All those will happen in person. We will be doing some quizzes as well throughout the semester. I think the quizzes will be done in some fashion here up online through our Canvas site or some other fashion, but all exams and finals will be given in person. When you look at our Canvas site, really the place that you should go is a couple of places here. There is an announcement section, which is not up here as there's no announcements at the time I'm doing this, but you'll probably right below home part right here will find the announcements tab, and you definitely should click on the announcements tab as I will be putting out announcements throughout the semester. It should also go to your email that's associated with it, which should be the Mount SAC email. I would also recommend perhaps you download the Canvas student app if you have not done so already. That also should give you some notifications, and it makes maybe turning things in and getting the Canvas site a lot easier. Other real main spot that you want to look at is the module section. So when you click on the module section, pretty much everything that I'm going to post or do will be found here in the module section. So that's definitely where you want to look. You'll find some different modules. So just kind of scrolling down, there's a welcome to Chem 40, some office hours, weekly calendar. And then the way that I'm going to set up the Canvas site here is by week. So week 1, you'll find everything that you need to do, week 2, and so forth. So let's take a look at some of these a little closer here. In the welcome to Chem 40, you will find the actual syllabus. So let me just click on it here. And we're not going to go through all of it or anything like that. We'll just, again, hit maybe some of the highlights here. Part of what you need to do is go through it yourself. You need to make sure that you read the entire thing and understand clearly how this class is going to run. Again, the information like we just were looking at can be found here for me and also Professor Kraft and our contacts. Here's the office hours. We will be doing personally for me, Professor Efron here. We will be doing office hours Tuesday and Thursdays, 11 to 11:30. You could email me, and that means that specifically on those days and during those times, I will specifically be definitely checking my email, and I will get back to you very as quick as possible Again, not instantaneously, but I'll get back to you as quick as possible. By the way, I do check my email all the time, so you can email me outside of those hours. But what I can sort of guarantee during that time period on Tuesday and Thursdays that I definitely will be checking the email. So I should be able to get back to you relatively quickly with a question that you might have. If you have questions on any of that, anything, you can use it for email, general questions about the course. Maybe you're working on something, you need some help. So you could always email me for help for that. We also will have by appointment on Zoom. If you need to do a personalized sort of meeting, we could do it on Zoom. Maybe during class as well, or not during class, I'm sorry, but maybe in person as well if scheduling permits that to happen. But if not, through Zoom, definitely by appointment. In addition to by appointment Zoom office hours, if you need, there will be some regularly scheduled Zoom meetings. They are optional. Obviously, you do not have to attend. They are going to be used for office hours. So they're open office hours. You don't have to sign up for it. You can just log on to the meeting during that time and I will answer questions. A note about that, by the way, it is Tuesday and Thursdays from 11:30 to 12 on Zoom. The link will be found on the Canvas page. We'll take a look at it in just a bit. You basically just click and I'll get to everybody in the order at which they come into the meeting. So if you do log into that meeting and you're in a waiting room, I'm still there. I might just be talking to somebody else at that point. So just like if you were coming to my door in person, you would have to wait, obviously, until the student in front of you was maybe done, unless they're okay with everybody coming in. But so just be patient. I will get to you. So if you have logged in or in the waiting room during that time period, I will get to you sort of in the order. Just hang out and then we'll come to you, or I might put you in a separate breakout room or something like that until I get a chance to get to you. So I mentioned, in addition to just email me during those other time period, I definitely will be checking my email all the time. So you could always email me if you have questions. Again, here on the syllabus, you'll find some important information, obviously, about what we just talked about. Our textbook, we are going to use Foundations of Chemistry as the 15th edition, and that's going to be with Wiley Plus. And here's that information about that. Wiley Plus is the online homework, and we will actually use it this winter semester. So we'll use the online homework from the textbook. So you do need access to Wiley Plus. I believe, if I am not mistaken, this is going to be a digital edition, as I think it says here. So you'll have a e-textbook and access code to do Wiley Plus homework when you buy it. I believe that's what the bookstore is selling. Or again, you can obviously get the textbook wherever you see fit, but just make sure you do have that Wiley Plus access, as we will be using it for the online homework. Lab manual, you do need the Chem 40 lab manual for the current year, which looks like it's 2023, 2024. That should be found at the school bookstore. In addition to that, you do need a basic scientific calculator. No graphing calculator. Basically, if your calculator has an exponent button or has a log button on it, you should be good. If you've taken a math class, probably one that you have should be appropriate. You also will need those calculators, obviously, for the exams or any quizzes and stuff that we take. No cell phones or that type of calculator will be allowed to be used for that situation. Has to be a real calculator. You also should have access to a computer, desktop, laptop with Chrome browser, and a webcam. You should have some access to that. This would be for any situation where I determine that we might do a type of assessment that may require some type of online proctoring, like Honor Guard, maybe Proctoria, familiar with that as well, something of that nature. So I'm not going to say 100% where you may use it, but you do need to and have it available for you as part of the requirements of this class. And not having it is not an excuse for not being able to take a quiz or something like that. So just to point that out there, I'm not sure how often we'll do that. This probably, in my estimation, would be something involving quizzes. If we need to use it, we will use it. So just make sure you have that. Also for lab, you will need some personal protective equipment. You need safety goggles. They're, the really big ones that cover your eyes. They fog up when you're using them, so you can't see the danger coming. Kind of looks like these guys right here. That's the kind of goggles that you do need. You also need closed-toed shoes, like a tennis shoe. You also need appropriate clothing like long pants and appropriate shirts. And you do need a lab coat is required as well. So you need a lab coat that closes in the front. All that should also be sold, the lab coat at least, and the goggles there in the bookstore. All right, so again, I'm going to let you go really through the syllabus here so the video doesn't become 2-3 hours long or however long it may take us to go through all the points here. But do make sure that you read it. Obviously, lectures will be done through recorded lectures that are recorded for you. Most of the time, it may be one lecture or one recording per chapter. Sometimes it may be multiple recordings per chapter. It's your responsibility to watch those as you're doing it. The best way to sort of watch those lectures is to print out the handouts. There's PDFs of the handout notes and actually have a paper, them printed on paper, a calculator, something to write with. And you should make sure that you're taking notes like you were sitting in class. That's going to get you the most out of this. And also make sure that you stop and actually do the recording, not the recordings, but do the examples in the recordings. So before you watch them done. So make sure that you pause those recordings and those videos, work out the examples yourself, and then continue on with the recording and see how you did. We'll go through just a couple other things here. As I mentioned before, probably the Canvas app would be really helpful. So make sure that you get that. You also will need to probably upload some assignments throughout the semester here at some point. Through Canvas, it does need to be a PDF file, so some type of phone scanner would be great. One is here is Adobe Scan. Don't have to use Adobe Scan. Use something like Cam Scanner or whatever it may be, but you do need to make sure it gets into a PDF file. Canvas will not take it unless it's a PDF file. That's kind of the settings going to be turned on for the assignments if you do have to upload something. So it will not accept picture files or anything like that. It has to be a PDF file. Attendance policy. Let's talk a little bit about attendance. Obviously, attendance is required in this class. So attendance for the laboratory part for sure is required. If you miss too many labs, I think the department policy is if you miss more than like 2 labs, you are not allowed to pass this class. You will be dropped. So make sure that is not the issue. In terms of online, obviously we do not have scheduled meeting times for lecture, but there will be a number of online activities, including discussions and assignments that you need to turn in on schedule. So that's going to count as your attendance and participation, which is part of your grade as well. Let's see some other things here. If you need some type of accommodations, make sure you officially go through the access department there, and that's the information there that you need. Homework, as I mentioned before, will be done through the Wiley Plus system. So make sure that you have that access. It will be accessed directly through our Canvas site. So you'll be able to link, and we'll take a look at it in just a sec here, but you'll be able to link out towards it or to the assignments through the Canvas site. They have due dates, they have due times. They need to be done by the due dates and due times. Otherwise, there will be penalty. You will lose points, or you might get a 0 on it. There will be no extensions on any assignments for any reason, good reason, bad reason, doesn't matter. There will not be any type of extension. So just make sure you keep that in mind. We will have some quizzes again throughout the semester. Again, I'm thinking they're going to probably be more so online type of thing, maybe homework type of quiz, maybe a worksheet that will count towards a quiz. You will get to drop your lowest quiz score at the end of the semester, but there will be no makeups again for any reason. So for any reason, there will not be any type of makeups. Exams, we'll have 3 exams throughout the semester over multiple chapters. As I said earlier on here in this recording, it will happen during lab time in person. You'll have a fixed amount of time. You will still be doing labs on those days. So you'll be a sort of a little varied version of the lab. So not the entire lab. And then the rest of the time you'll probably be using for the exam. In-person exams are individual work, closed books, no notes, no cards or anything like that. You typically will be given conversions, any type of constants type values. You are typically not given formulas. So you typically need to know formulas. You also need to know things like polyatomic ions when we get to naming and stuff like that. So typically speaking, you'll be given a periodic table, conversions and constants. And typically speaking, you will not be given formulas or anything like that. So keep that in mind as you're studying, as you're going through it. Most of those things you do need to kind of know by heart. Same thing here, regardless of the situation, regardless of the reason why, if you miss an exam, there is going to be really no makeup. There's kind of no way to make up anything. So you will have to take a 0. Again, good excuse, bad excuse. It doesn't really matter in this case. But in lieu of something that should happen, that you miss an exam or anything like that, for your one lowest exam score, which would also be a 0 if you happen to have missed one, you will get the opportunity to replace that score, that one score, with your percentage on the final, if your percentage on the final is higher than your percentage on your lowest exam score. So that's sort of how we will handle it. By some chance you miss one exam. If you miss more than one exam, then you're going to take a 0 on the second one, regardless of our third one, and probably not pass the class. But if something should happen, you miss that exam, you get that opportunity. So everybody gets that opportunity, regardless if you missed the exam or not. So even if you took all 3 exams and one of your exam scores percentages were lower than what you got on the final exam, and that's the lecture final exam we're talking about, we'll replace that for you. So you don't have to miss an exam to have that happen. Everybody gets the opportunity to replace their lowest exam score, whether it's a 0 because you missed it, or it's a 2 because you only answered one question. Whatever it may be, everybody will get that opportunity if their final exam score is higher percentage. Again, our 2 finals here, and when they're happening, as we talked about earlier, the whole thing. As you can see, there are basically Tuesday for the lab final, and then followed by Thursday of that last week for our lecture final. Now, the laboratory is a really important part. There will be pre-lab questions that you should do before you come to class. Hence, they're called pre-lab questions. There usually will be the experiment that you do, where there'll be some tables and stuff like that you fill in the lab manual, and then there'll be some post-lab questions. So everybody needs their own lab manual, because that's pretty much what you're going to fill in the information on the pages in there. And so that's what your lab report's going to be and what you're going to turn in. And you can read more about this and safety. Safety is really important in the lab. So it is very, very important that you always have your lab goggles and your lab coat and appropriate clothing. If you do not have any of that safety stuff, you will not be allowed to do the experiment. If you do not wear that stuff, even if you show up and you're wearing it and you stop wearing it, and you have to be told a number of times by your lab instructor to put their goggles on or lab coat on, you will not be allowed to continue doing the experiment either. You should arrive on time to lab, so it is early at 7:30. And that's because at the very beginning of the period there, he will probably be going over lab safety and about the experiment. So if you turn in late or arrive late, you may not be allowed to actually participate in that experiment. So make sure that you are on time. I mentioned it earlier, don't miss more than 2. That is not just our policy, but it is the department's policy. As you can see, it's spelled out here on the syllabus. One last sort of thing about the lab, in addition to obviously you'll be having a lab final, it will most likely be a written sort of final, maybe some multiple choice questions, workout questions regarding and related to the lab. You do have to pass both portions of this class to be eligible to get a C or better in this class. So for the lab, you need to at least hit about 68% for the lab portion. And the lab instructor says it's okay, or feels that you've done enough work to pass the lab portion. That, in combination with what you get on the lecture portion, you need to achieve an overall, obviously 70 or better in the class to be eligible for a C or better. Again, just getting 68 in the lab does not guarantee you a C or better. You need to minimally get that 68% in lab, also pass the lecture part, and together get 70% or better in the class for you to be eligible to get a C or better in this class. So sometimes people think that they could just do really well in lecture and just kind of blow off lab and get kind of like a bad grade in lab and not pass lab, but pass the lecture and it all balances out. That's not the case here. You do have to definitely pass the lab portion and the lecture portion in order to qualify to pass the class. All right, discussions. We will have several discussion boards as online activity. You'll need to post by a certain period of time. You'll need to reply to other people's posts. Just a reminder about all activity in this class, in addition to online activity and in-person activity, you need to be respectful. You need to think about what you are saying, what you are posting. You should never post anything that's going to be assumed to be offensive by somebody else or could be taken as offensive or not appropriate for the classroom situation. So think about that when you're typing things into discussion boards or just in general online. And also, obviously, as you treat people in person, since it is an in-person class, you should be respectful to everybody as well. There will be no tolerance for any disrespectfulness by anybody, both online and in person in this course. So make sure you keep that in mind as you're going through. I imagine it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Let's talk a little about the grading scheme here. It's pretty straightforward. 90, 80, 70, 60 is the overall cutoffs. Again, maybe not set 100% in stone. They may come down a little bit. Don't really know until the end when I do final grades. But in general, 12.5% will be made up of your online homework. 5% includes things like attendance, participation, online activities, instructors' evaluation of your performance in the class. Quizzes will be 7.5% of your grade. Lab will be 20. Midterm exams will be 30. 5% for the lab final and 20% for the lecture final exam. Here's a few more things about that. Grading policy. Those important dates we saw before. Again, I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. You should read the entire thing wall to wall. Make sure you clearly understand it. Attention to effort, some tutoring services. Obviously, cheating, academic dishonesty will not be tolerated here. Anything that you turn in for this class is assumed to be done during this current semester by you, not by somebody else. And you cannot turn in old stuff if you happen to have old stuff from you or anybody else. So sometimes people think, well, I did it in a previous semester, still my work. You're not allowed to turn that in for this semester. So it's got to be fresh. Don't serve me anything old. Yes, it's got to be fresh material. You cannot turn in something that has been used before or even not turned in before, but from a different semester. That goes for lab reports. It goes for online in material that we do. That also goes for exams and quizzes. Those are, again, individual works. A little bit about COVID-19 safety. Again, you can hit the website. Obviously, if you are feeling sick and perhaps contagious, you obviously should not show up to class, but use your appropriate judgment. A couple of things. Again, I reserve the right to assign seats in this class. Disrupted behavior, disturbed being the behavior, argumentative behavior, all that kind of stuff. Again, just the basic idea, be respectful to everybody, and that works much, much better. Some lecturing may be done in the lab. You may are responsible for that. Obviously, recorded lectures you're responsible for. By the way, recorded lectures, everything else that's posted online is for your personal use here in this course, not to be put anywhere else. All coursework, again, is expected to be completed by you during this semester. It's your responsibility, by the way, when you do turn in assignments, to make sure that whatever you upload to Canvas, for example, is the correct file. You're not just keep uploading the wrong file every time. It's also your responsibility to make sure it gets there by the due date and time. If not, again, probably going to receive some type of point deduction or not be accepted. If you upload something to Canvas, go back, reopen the file, make sure it is complete and what you want to turn in. Lastly, we'll use the Canvas gradebook. It'll be updated periodically. I personally don't do my final grades and stuff through the Canvas gradebook. I just use it as sort of a way for you to kind of keep track of what's in there. So will it be 100% perfectly accurate every moment of the day? It will not. So just keep that in mind. Again, it's up to you to kind of keep up with your grades. As I mentioned before, anything that involves the lecture portion of the class, you should direct those conversations or questions to me. Anything that involves the lab portion, you should direct it to Professor Kraft. Here's our student learning outcomes. Here's some course measurable outcomes for this course. And then how to be successful. So some ideas that you might want to read through. And this is our lecture and lab schedule. So you should know exactly what everything is and when everything begins and what we're doing. So here's our lecture schedule, and you should try to keep this pace, watching the recorded lectures so that you could keep on pace and keep up with the material. So you'll know sort of where you should be during the week. And this is how the weekly modules will sort of follow as well. You will also see in the lab here what experiments you were doing. You'll also see on those days there are experiment and exams happening on the same day. Looks like we do not have lab on the 8th, which is the very first day technically of class. You will come to school on the 9th, which is where your lab days will begin. And we also have a holiday, looks like on the 15th. And again, there's our exams. And again, towards the end here in the last week, our lab final on the Tuesday. And once again, our lecture final in person on that Thursday on the 6th week. So you should know exactly what we're doing, when it's happening. Everything's pretty much on this schedule that can be found here in the syllabus. Really, the only thing that's not on there are quizzes, which will be announced, and you'll know when those will be happening. So chemistry safety rules as well. So kind of went through the syllabus there relatively on the quick side, just to kind of go through some of the points, make sure that you read it all the way through. There's actually a syllabus quiz, which would be sort of like a checking in sort of assignment for this course in terms of attendance. After you read the syllabus, make sure you take the syllabus quiz and that you have passed. In terms of the online homework, this is a link to a video that describes Wiley Plus, how to kind of access it through Canvas and get started with assignments. Some other things here. This is our first discussion board sort of assignment that you'll need to do. You'll need to post and then post back to people. So make sure that you do that appropriately. We will also have just an open discussion board, which I'm not going to really monitor too much, but you still need to be respectful, obviously, in your interactions here. But this is just a place if you want to, student to student. You're kind of nice, not 100% online course. You do get to see each other on lab days, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. But you could also, if you want to post just some questions to each other, and more so an open discussion board for you guys to sort of discuss things with each other. For office hours on those Tuesdays and Thursdays, right here's where you can find the link to the Zoom. So you could click on it. And obviously here you can click on the link and that will open up the Zoom for you. Again, my email for what time I'll be definitely checking email. And then obviously some other office hours and contact information that you can find. This is a weekly calendar, and here you'll find the weekly calendar for each week. This is just a page where it pretty much runs through everything going on in that week for both up on top, kind of like bullet points of important things to think about. Like, hey, you should go through the Chem 40 welcome module. You should complete the attendance and check-in post. And then for lecture, what you should be reading, what homeworks you should be doing, discussion board. For lab, again, what days and what labs you'll be doing, and just a reminder about the safety equipment that you do need for labs. So for every week, you'll find one of these, and it'll sort of give you just an overview of, kind of everything that you need to complete for that particular week. Here again, it's our weekly modules. So that's the same calendar we just looked at. That's our discussion board. Here are our lectures for the first week. And when you click on it, it will take you here to a YouTube video, a recorded lecture, you could click here and actually watch it here on the Canvas site if you like. You could click out to the YouTube channel and watch it there, whichever way that you want to watch it. For the most part, they're not extremely long videos, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours at the most. They may be broken up into multiple parts, and that's what we see here, for, say, chapter 2, or they just may be one and done lectures. Your lecture notes that you should print out to follow along can be also found in the module. If you click on it, again, it's a PDF file of pretty much the notes. Everything's pretty much filled in, except for the examples. As I mentioned before, and as you'll hear in those videos, and I've said before, best way to do it is to actually print them out, have a paper on paper, have a calculator, something to write with, and actually take notes like you were sitting in class. As weird as it may seem to sit in front of your computer or whatever it may be, to do that, you're going to get more out of it than just watching it on loop all the way through. Can't tell you enough, as I mentioned enough in these videos, but also pausing the video, working out the examples by yourself, and then watching a video as to how to do them. That's the best thing that you could do for yourself. You'll also find the homework assignments. So here's how you'll find your homework assignments. They'll be listed by chapter. You click on it. It will take you here to a new window. You could click on it. It will open it up, and you're ready to open your assignment. And you're ready to start your assignment. It will tell you about how many questions there are, give you kind of the content it's coming out of. You'll hit the start. It'll be a combination of maybe fill in the blank, multiple choice type questions. You could work through it. You could save for later if you want to work on it later. You could submit your answer. You will get a number of opportunities for each question. I think it's something like 6. I think after maybe the 3rd attempt, you'll lose some credit. So hopefully by the 3rd attempt, you'll have the right answer. But you'll lose a little partial credit every time maybe you give a wrong answer. But you should be able to do that. So make sure that they are done by the due date and they are completed. As you continue through here, again, week 2, same idea. This is where our lectures will be, our lecture notes, the homework. You'll also find some review topics for the exams. So for example, exam 1 is actually the 2nd week at the end. So here's some extra problems from the textbook that you could do. They're not going to be collected, but maybe if you want some different problems, similar type problems, you could do that. And here's just some review topics, for example, of what's going to be on exam 1 and the stuff that you need to know. So there's just kind of the bullet point list of everything that we covered. In addition, just some review material on some of the topics. So here's one, for example, on significant figures. It's kind of a combination, extra information, a little bit of practice problems. Again, not going to be due, just some extra help. Week 3 module, week 4, exam 2 review, week 5, exam 3, week 6, our final exam review and stuff like that. So that's the main part of our Canvas page that you need to go to. Obviously, grades is the other part of it. Some other helpful resources down here. Once again, to begin Wiley's sort of access, you could click on the Wiley course resources. I clearly am logged in and all that good stuff, but I imagine if you haven't done so, they will ask you originally to make an account, use your code that you have for it. And eventually, I think when you then click on it, it's here. And this is where I think you could access your online textbook if you have that, which you can if you kind of go through it here, and you'll have obviously here chapter 1, for example, and you'll have the textbook pretty much. So I think that's the one they sell you, is this ebook sort of version, and that's how you could access it. And you could read it like a normal textbook. It is word for word like the textbook. And that's what I believe your interface will look like as well. All right, so I think that is pretty much it. I just wanted to kind of go through this. Welcome to the semester. I hope you have an enjoyable semester. Remember, if you need help on anything, make sure that you do reach out to me. Again, through email is the best way. Obviously, if you have any questions about the lab, Professor Kraft is a great, obviously, resource to talk to. So for now, I'll say goodbye. You'll probably see me again, maybe in a video, maybe some other people as well. And hopefully we'll see each other in person soon. Have a good one. Have a great semester and welcome to our Chem 40 class.